What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down a wide receiver football IQ test. We're going to be testing your knowledge at the slot and outside wide receiver position and just going over some different situations and quizzing you guys on what your knowledge might be on those. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you guys would like to get some work in with us this offseason, we are going to be traveling out to 15 different states across the country for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So next up on our camp tour, we'll be coming out to San Francisco. That camp is completely sold out, but then we'll be coming out to Orlando, New Orleans, Charlotte, Dallas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys are local to one of those cities and would like to work with us, check out that very first link in the description below for more information. Let's get started. So if you're not familiar with our quiz style videos, what I am going to do, and this is going to be for slot wide receivers and outside wide receivers, is that I'm going to show a pre-snap look. I'm going to ask you guys a question about this look, and then I'm going to give you guys some time. I'm going to let you pause the video, think about your answers. Maybe you write it down, maybe just think about it, and then we're going to go over it. So it's kind of just a way to quiz and test yourself. So first example here, this is going to be out of the slot. We have inside leverage coverage, so inside man coverage with maybe about a yard or 2 to 3 yards of space. How would you guys run a 10-yard out versus this coverage? So let's go ahead. You guys can go ahead and pause the video, think about your answer. So pause the video. Okay, so let's break this thing down. So I'm going to play at full speed. So if you guys said that you would want to attack his leverage inside, try to get him to move inside, take the outside release, and then break it off, either work to stack or maybe you lean into him at the break point, you would be correct. Now, we're going to play this example right now. This is kind of like a two-part question. I'm going to show you guys the example, and then I want you guys to think about what this wide receiver did wrong. So I kind of explained it to you guys. I told you what you would want to do, but what did this wide receiver do wrong? Let's play at full speed. So he comes off the ball. Now, makes the break and comes out. DB's got a chance to make a play on it. Doesn't end up making a play on it because the wide receiver catches it. But what do you think he did wrong here? Let's talk about it. I'm going to play at full speed one more time. So you guys can go ahead after you watch this. Go ahead and pause the video. Think about what that wide receiver did wrong. Okay, so now, if you guys said that he maybe took a little bit too long at the break point, he didn't attack the DB's leverage, that would be correct. So off the line of scrimmage, you see how this wide receiver just kind of went wide. That's one of the main things that a lot of quicker slot wide receivers will do, especially against bigger physical guys. They're afraid to get into their cushion. They're afraid to go attack them because obviously as a bigger DB, bigger safety, bigger linebacker who we're going to be matched up against, if he gets hands on me and I'm a smaller guy, that's maybe not the best situation for myself. But you know what? I can't be afraid of that type of contact. I have to go at him. I can't be afraid to swat hands to get in a little bit of a hand fight. So when I just run to the outside, this DB, honestly, like he started to keep his leverage inside, like before he even threatened him inside. So this may not have been the best play from the DB. DB probably should have gotten hands and started to squeeze this wide receiver to the sideline. But he kept this space, and that makes it an easy play for this wide receiver. Now, at the break point, you see how he comes off here, he makes a cut, and he does like kind of this like square cut, right? Now, the problem with that is think about the route that he is running here, right? Here's the line of scrimmage. This is what? Probably a 10-yard out? Yeah, this is a 10-yard out, right? A 10-yard out is a timing throw. The QB is taking a rhythm 3-step drop, and he is letting this thing go right off of the 3rd step. So if we are taking time at the break point, that is going to screw up his timing. Quarterbacks are taught as soon as you break, that ball should already be out of our hands. So if we're taking like 5 extra steps at the top of this route, when it's a 10-yard timing out route, that ball is going to be thrown way past us, or the QB is going to double clutch it, either not throw it or just like in this example, throw it late. So the reason why I include this, fellas, is if you're a slot wide receiver, you got to understand how to run routes. You have to understand the pre-snap look and how to specifically attack with your routes, but you got to understand how to keep it realistic. So when he's inside shade, what he should have done, let's get into his cushion. Let's attack his leverage. Let's try to get him to hold that leverage inside so I can take an outside release and get out fast. He did a good job keeping space to the sideline, but we need to make sure it's an efficient, realistic route. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. Again, great job by this wide receiver getting separation, I guess, at the start of it, but we need to make sure we're smarter with my routes. Okay, so now, this is going to be another question for the slot, and we're going to be getting in some outside wide receiver questions here in a second, but this is going to be a play concept. This is going to be kind of a coverage question. So the play concept would be this wide receiver, the outside wide receiver, they're bringing this guy in motion, and he ends up kind of running like a crossing route, but this wide receiver is running a fake block turn up field, and he's running like a fake screen. So the QB's going to pump fake here and hit this throw. Now, based on this pre-snap look, based on this pre-snap look, I want you to think, what coverage might this be? And then I want you to think, what type of ball can this wide receiver, the slot wide receiver, because that's who ends up getting the ball, what kind of ball can he expect from the quarterback? So what type of coverage might this be, and what type of ball would we expect here from this quarterback? So you guys can go ahead and pause the video, think about your answer. Okay, so now I'm going to play this thing full speed. So if you guys said cover 2 or cover 4, you would be correct, right? So this is a pretty basic look, right? We got 3 linebackers, we got the Mike, or we got the Will, we got the Mike, and then we got the Sam. Then we got the 2 corners, then we have 2 safeties. Now, on this side of the field, because teams often will split up the coverage, right? Just because they're going cover 2 on one side does not mean that they are going cover 2 on both sides. They could be going cover 2 on this side with the corners playing the flat, safety playing deep half, and this safety playing a deep fourth, this corner playing a deep fourth. They call that cover 6. One side's in 4, one side's in 2. So that's easily what it could have been. But if you said this side was cover 2, you would be correct. Now, if you said on the fake screen and go to expect a whole shot ball from the quarterback, you would be correct. Now, let's play this full speed. Let's watch what happens. So he brings this guy across in motion. Quarterback snaps the ball. He does this fake screen. We get that corner to bite. But again, you see how he gets a whole shot throw because that safety would pick the ball off if we put this thing with some air. Usually on this like fake screen and go, usually what ends up happening, like honestly, like I feel like this wide receiver kind of makes or breaks the play, right? Like if we were to throw in this fake screen and let's say this guy slips up the edge and this safety drives on that like kind of fake block wheel route almost, and this guy were to be running like a hard seam and he were to go right now, that puts the safety in a bind and he has to pick one. If that safety jets over there, we could easily hit this right over the middle for a touchdown. But he kind of jogs his route. It's kind of a lazier route, so we have to put that thing right in the whole shot against cover 2. But that's the type of ball, and that's the type of coverage that you would expect. Okay, so let's play this thing again full speed, fellas. It's very important, especially as a slot wide receiver, that you know how to read coverages. Reading coverages is probably, I would say, more important as a slot wide receiver than an outside wide receiver. As an outside wide receiver, a lot of it's similar. You know, like cover 3, cover 4, it's kind of the same responsibilities for you in terms of how you would run your routes. You know, man coverage, obviously, same responsibilities, off man. But as a slot, it can tell you a lot about where the zones of the play are. Like you have to run this fake block and go, but you see that this is a cover 2 situation. Maybe kind of settle in the window. We don't need to keep running full speed and cover myself. Let's sit in the window. Let's sit in that zone coverage to find space for my QB. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Again, great job by this quarterback faking that screen and then hitting that thing right in that whole shot for a great ball. Okay, so now, next example here. This is for the outside wide receivers. So this is another coverage-based question. So let's say, for example, this DB right here, if he was in cover 2, so let's say it was cover 2. What type of leverage would he have? So this might be an easy question for some of you. So if it was cover 2, what type of leverage would we have? So think about what we know about cover 2 from the last example that we talked about. What type of leverage would he have? So you guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about your answer. Okay, let's break this thing down. So if it was cover 2, right, fellas? And you see how this is a situation where pre-snap, we don't know what leverage he has. Quarterback is to the inside over here. Quarterback is to this wide receiver's right. So he's head-up press, essentially, right? It looks like head-up press. So what type of leverage would he have? Is he trying to protect the inside? Is he trying to protect the outside? We don't know. But if it was cover 2, what we do know is that he would be trying to force me probably where? He would probably be trying to force me to his safety help, right? Because again, in cover 2, what's the situation? This DB, this corner has the flats. So if I were drawing it up right now, like let's say this is the corner, then let's say this is the free safety. The corner would have the flats, free safety would have the deep half. So if we got a wide receiver here, this corner is going to be outside leverage, because when he's outside leverage and he doesn't give up the outside, he's forcing this wide receiver to have to go inside, which makes it an easier play on that free safety. So let's play this thing full speed. Let's watch what he does. So this wide receiver comes off the ball, but that DB stays very disciplined. He stays in a squatted stance. He keeps his base. He forces that wide receiver to the inside. Now this safety got beat bad, because in cover 2, you should never get beat over the top. If anything, it is going to be a hole shot like that last throw that we saw. This safety got beat very, very bad. Maybe there's another route coming underneath that he crashed on, whatever it is, but you should never expect this type of ball here in cover 2. But that's That's a great job by this wide receiver, obviously making a play and taking that inside release. But understand, fellas, that in cover 2, that DB is going to be outside leverage. Pre-snap, we come up to the ball. We maybe see that the DB is showing outside leverage. We see that there's 2 high safeties. We see that they have like kind of in a skinny stance. Okay, yeah, that's probably cover 2. I know that this DB is probably going to try to not let me take the outside release. Only time we want to force the outside release is if it's a mandatory outside release, like on certain plays. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by this wide receiver being able to react, taking what that DB gives him, and then obviously being able to show us that cover 2 zone. Okay, so now, next question I want to ask you, it's not going to be so much of how to run a certain route against a certain look, but let's talk about this. Or let me ask you this, I should say. Why would this DB be outside leverage? Why would he be outside leverage? This is not cover 2, by the way. Why would he be outside leverage on this play versus this wide receiver? So think about the psyche of a DB. So why would he be playing outside leverage? So you guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about that question. So go ahead and pause it. Okay, so let's break it down. So now, if you guys said that he's outside leverage because he has help to the inside, that is true. That is 100% true. But sometimes he has help to the inside, and he's playing head up. So why is he playing so far outside? Why is he playing outside? Because of the wide receiver's alignment. If you guys said that this wide receiver has a reduced split and he is lined up closer to the lineman, that is why this DB is playing outside leverage, you would be correct. Because why does a wide receiver cut his split down? He cuts his split down closer to the line to run either a drag, which will go right into his help over the middle, or to run something outside breaking to use the space that he created to the outside by cutting his split down. So the wide receiver lines up outside leverage to protect that. If this guy wants to run a corner, he wants to run it out, he wants to run a fade, this DB is going to try to make it real challenging. Because as wide receivers, especially if you follow this page, we know how to run a 10-yard out versus outside leverage. But not a lot of wide receivers do, and it's definitely harder. Even though we know how to do it, it is definitely harder to run a 10-yard out versus outside leverage zone. So let's play this full speed. Let's watch what Ridley does and watch what route he ends up running. He ends up running a 10-yard or a deep out, not a 10-yard out, but a deep out versus this outside leverage look. Now, he does a great job getting separation because when he comes off the ball, he does a little tempo change and then he accelerates, making it look like a deep post, selling with his speed, selling with his stride, running with good pad level. All of those things is what will get that DB to commit and will help you sell the route until the last possible second. Even when he has outside leverage and I'm able to sell fade, I'm able to sell deep skinny post, that can get the DB to go. There comes a point on every single rep where he has to commit to it. He has to move off that platform if we sell it enough. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Calvin Ridley selling this route. And then obviously, fellas, that is why DBs will play outside leverage. Smart DBs will play outside when we cut our splits down. So if you're at a camp setting and you want to run a 10-yard out, want to run a corner, you better know how to do that against outside leverage because as soon as you cut your split down to do so, that DB will be outside shade. All right, so let's move on to the next example here. So now, what I want to talk about is I just want to talk about a name of the coverage because I think a lot of wide receivers don't know this. So what is the name of this type of coverage? That not the coverage as a whole, not like cover 2, 3, any of that. What is the name of this type of man coverage that Darrelle Revis is playing right here? What is the name of that type of coverage? You guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about your answer. Okay, so if you guys said catch technique, that would be correct. So catch technique is one of those techniques that a lot of DBs will play. I think it should be easy for wide receivers to beat it if you know how to beat it. But catch technique is one of those coverages where DBs are essentially trying to catch you, that's why they call it catch, and just reroute you to the sideline. And there is usually about 2 to 3 yards of space between the two of you. So let's play this full speed. Let's watch what Odell does here. He kind of does a little hesitation move. He doesn't really attack Revis. Revis is able to kind of squeeze him to the sideline, and you see how tight Odell is, right? And the ball was obviously thrown out of bounds because Odell didn't really give that quarterback room to throw him open, right? Essentially on a fade, we want to be running this thing like at the bottom of the numbers probably. Like Odell starts this situation fairly close to the bottom of the numbers. But we got this catch technique look. So catch technique is he is essentially wanting Odell to just try to run around him. He wants him to just take off and go run to the outside like he did so he could get hands, use his size, and just force him all the way to that sideline. Now, if we would have done this, if Odell would have gone at him, tried to step on his toes against this catch technique, he maybe could have got him to move inside, take the inside release, and got tighter to him, got skinny, as we say, and give that QB space to fade him. But when you just try to run away from the catch technique, he's going to get hands and he's going to reroute you. Now, the same goes for the inside release. If he's in catch, and like let's say you had to run a post and you try to take an inside release, but you just try to run around him, he's just waiting for you. That's why they call it catch technique. He is catching you and rerouting you. So how we can avoid that, let's make sure we go at him. So we just have to understand what technique is what, fellas, especially when you're trying to structure releases and pick releases as a wide receiver. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. Remember, fellas, against catch, we have to close the space. Anytime the DB gives me space, I have to close that space. Okay, so now, next example I want to talk about here. Pretty basic question, I feel. What release would you choose if you had to do a one-step slant versus head-up press, like in this scenario? So what release would you choose for a one-step slant? You guys can go ahead and pause the video and think about what you're going to do. So pause the video. Okay, so let's break this down. So the release that you would use would be something called a wide step release. Or if you said maybe like a split release, I could live with that answer as well. So if we got a guy who's in head up press coverage, right? So he's head up press, I got to run a one step slant. If he was off, like let's say he was sitting right at the goal line, what would you do? You would just take one step up with your left foot and then break on the quick slant. Some teams will do like a two-step release. They'll have wide receiver, or a two-step slant. They'll have wide receivers come out and switch their stance. So like instead of their inside foot being up, their outside foot will be up, just so they could come off the ball and go 1, 2, rather than just taking one quick step. But when we get press, obviously we can't just take a step forward because we're going to run right into him, and that doesn't really move the DB. He'll be all over me. So I have to do something called a wide step. So a wide step is exactly how it sounds. You're stepping with this back foot wide outside the DB's frame, trying to get him to move off the platform so we could break on the slant. So let's play this full speed. So he comes off the ball, great wide step, great job selling the outside speed release and then winning on the slant itself. So he comes off here. Remember, we have to be able on this wide step to sell a speed release fade. We have to make this DB think that we are going wide. So we need some explosion. He uses something we call a kick step. So a kick step is where you kick behind with your back foot. He kicks, throws his hip out wide. He steps outside the DB's frame, his hips and his shoulders. Everything about this looks like he is going to the outside. And like I said, just like that zone coverage outside shade, there comes a point on every single rep where a DB has to move. He has to honor what we are doing. And if we could sell it like this, that is what's going to make the DB honor it and going to get him off that platform. And that is what could get me separation, especially on that one-step slant. You use that wide step on a one-step slant. You could also use it on any type of inside release. It's probably my favorite release to use when taking an inside release. Let's play this again, full speed one more time. So great job by Rashad Bateman selling the outside release and then winning on that slant. All right, so now, fellas, this next clip here, we're looking at this route from Brandon Innes. I want to ask you last thing. How would you run an RPO slant versus this coverage? So an RPO slant, what release would you go with? How would you run this route? RPO, think about what that means, okay? So you guys can go ahead and pause the video, think about your answer. Okay, so now let's break this down. So RPO slant, run pass option, right? That's what an RPO is, run pass option. So on a run pass option, what is the quarterback doing? The quarterback is reading, like, let's say, for example, you got a linebacker right here who's to the inside. Quarterback's over here. He's got the running back. And he's doing a zone read play action. Or not so much play action, but it's RPO, right? Run pass option. So he sees that this linebacker crashes into the box on the zone read fake. So what this quarterback's going to do is he's going to pull the ball, and then we have a slant replacing that linebacker right behind it. So now, if I have that specific look, obviously, do you think that's going to take a little bit longer than a quick game slant where the quarterback just catches it and throws? Yeah, of course, because he's got to read a guy. He's got to go through a whole play action fake, I guess, if you will, and then he's got to reset his feet and throw the ball. So to make my route time up with the play, I need to use a more patient release, which would be something like a slide release. So we look at this example here from Brandon Innes. He does this slide release to the outside, hits him with a crossover, and then wins on the slant. So if you guys said slide release, that would be correct. If you guys said like diamond release, that would be wrong just because that might be a little bit too fast. Now, you could do like a little hesitation move and then go into a diamond release because that would time up with the play. But the key on this play is RPO. If I would have said first read, quick game slant, 3-step slant, diamond release would be correct. Something quick would be correct. But because I said RPO, you slow down the tempo of your release. This is probably the only time I personally like to slow down the tempo of the release when it's a longer developing play. We can never screw up timing with my quarterback if I don't need to slow things down. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to train with us in 15 different states this offseason, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to see you out there. I'll see you guys next time.